The episode began like any other, the hosts of The View exchanging cheerful banter, the studio audience buzzing with anticipation, and the camera panning to the doors as the announcer introduced, "Please welcome, Tim Allen." The crowd erupted in applause, the veteran comedian striding out with that familiar confident gait and mischievous grin. Dressed casually, but sharp as ever, Tim greeted each host with warmth, even giving Joy Behar a friendly nod that, at the time, seemed harmless. For the first several minutes, the mood was upbeat. They talked about home improvement, Toy Story, and his long career in comedy. Tim shared a few behind-the-scenes stories, his timing flawless, the audience laughing and clapping in all the right places. But beneath the laughter, tension was already brewing. Joy had been unusually quiet, waiting for her chance to steer the conversation toward more controversial ground. When she finally did, the energy in the room shifted, so subtly at first, most didn't even notice. She leaned forward, that trademark smirk curling at the corner of her lips, and asked, "Tim, don't you ever worry that your kind of comedy doesn't fit in today's world anymore? I mean, some of your stuff from back then, people might call it offensive now." The audience gave an uneasy chuckle. Tim raised an eyebrow, still smiling, but his eyes sharpened just slightly. "Well, Joy," he began evenly, "if people can't take a joke anymore, maybe the problem isn't the comedian." The crowd laughed and clapped, but Joy didn't let up. "Oh, come on," she pressed, her tone mockingly playful. "You can't tell me you think all those jokes would still be okay now." The laughter in the room thinned, and a quiet tension crept in. Tim's grin faltered. He looked directly at Joy, and said, "Comedy is supposed to challenge. It's supposed to make you uncomfortable. That's what makes it funny. If you take that away, you're just left with noise." There was a long pause. Even Whoopi and the other hosts looked uneasy, glancing between them as if sensing where this was headed. Joy crossed her arms, ready to fire back. "So you think being offensive is part of your job?" she asked sharply. Tim leaned forward, his tone calm but firm. "No, I think being honest is. And if honesty offends you, maybe that's something to think about." The audience gasped. Joy tried to laugh it off, but it came out forced. The tension was now unmistakable. Tim wasn't joking anymore, and The View was no longer just another talk show segment. It was the beginning of a confrontation that would leave viewers stunned, producers scrambling, and the internet ablaze for weeks to come. The air in the studio had grown thick, so much that even the camera crew seemed hesitant to breathe. Joy Behar, clearly unwilling to back down, decided to push harder, her tone dripping with sarcasm. "You sound like one of those guys who thinks the world's gone soft," she quipped, flashing a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Maybe times have changed, Tim. Maybe people are just more aware now." The audience gave a polite laugh, sensing the tension but unsure whose side to take. Tim's jaw tightened. He leaned back in his chair, nodded slowly, and replied, "You mean people are more afraid now, Joy? Afraid to say what they really think because someone might get offended? That's not awareness, that's fear." The crowd murmured, caught off guard by the seriousness in his voice. Joy tried to cut in again, but Tim held up a hand, his calm beginning to fray. "I've been in this business for over 40 years, he said, his voice steady but rising in intensity. "I've seen comedy survive wars, scandals, and politics. But lately, it's dying, because everyone's too busy walking on eggshells to laugh." His words hit like thunder, the audience breaking into a hesitant mix of applause and awkward silence. Joy smirked, clearly irritated now. "Or maybe," she snapped, "some jokes just weren't that funny to begin with." The insult landed hard. Tim blinked, stunned for a second, then gave a short laugh, cold and humorless. "You know, Joy," he said, leaning forward, "I've met plenty of people who didn't get my humor. But usually, they weren't paid to." The audience gasped, some clapping, others booing. Whoopi Goldberg raised her hands, trying to defuse the situation. "Hey now, let's all take a breath," she said, but the damage was done. Joy's face hardened, her smile disappeared completely. "You can't come here and insult people," she shot back. Tim stood up slightly in his seat, his frustration now visible. "I didn't come here to insult anyone. I came here to talk about a movie. But if you want to make it personal, Joy, go ahead. You'll lose." The audience erupted, half cheering, half stunned into silence. Joy looked taken aback, her usual composure slipping for the first time. The tension was electric, the kind of live TV drama that producers dread and audiences live for. Cameras zoomed in on Tim's face, catching the sharp glint of controlled anger in his eyes. Before anyone could stop him, Tim rose from his chair, adjusted his jacket, and said coolly into the mic, "You know what? I think I've said enough for today." The crowd gasped again. "Tim, come on," Whoopi called after him, but it was too late. He gave a short, polite nod to the audience, ignored Joy's glare, and walked straight off the stage. The set was silent, no applause, no laughter, just the stunned faces of hosts and audience alike, realizing they'd just witnessed a moment that would go viral within minutes. Backstage, the atmosphere was nothing short of chaos. Producers rushed toward Tim Allen as he stepped off the set, their earpieces buzzing with overlapping voices from the control room. "Tim, wait, can we talk about this?" One of them pleaded, but his expression said it all. He wasn't in the mood for damage control. He took a deep breath, rubbing his forehead as he muttered, "You invite me on to talk about a film, and instead, I get ambushed. That's not an interview, that's a setup." His publicist tried to calm him down, gently urging him to stay for a brief statement to the press, but Tim just shook his head. "No, let them talk. I've got nothing else to say," he said firmly, turning toward the exit. Meanwhile, back on stage, the View crew was in full damage control mode. Joy Behar sat stiffly in her chair, forcing an uneasy smile while Whoopi Goldberg tried to smooth things over for the audience. "Well, folks," Whoopi said, her tone a mix of humor and exasperation, "that was lively." The crowd gave a nervous laugh, unsure whether to clap or stay silent. Joy tried to speak, "Look, I didn't mean to," but the producers cut to a commercial break before she could finish. When the cameras went off, the tension among the hosts was palpable. Joy slammed her cue cards on the table, muttering, "He's too sensitive." Sunny Hostin shot her a disapproving look. "You were pushing him," she said quietly. "He was being polite until you cornered him." Within minutes, clips of the walkout were flooding social media. Fans and critics alike were divided, some siding with Joy, saying Tim couldn't handle a real conversation, while others blasted The View for its toxic habit of ambushing guests. Hashtags like hashtag Tim Allen walks off and hashtag Joy Behar drama began trending within the hour. Conservative commentators jumped in to defend Tim, calling him a hero for standing up to mainstream media bullying, while liberal voices accused him of being unable to handle accountability. News outlets scrambled to write articles, with headlines like, "Tim Allen storms off The View after fiery exchange," and "Joy Behar pushes too far, again." By the afternoon, the clip had already hit 10 million views on YouTube and was being replayed endlessly across Twitter and TikTok. Comment sections became battlegrounds, filled with angry debates and memes of Tim walking off the stage. The show's producers, blindsided by the viral explosion, held an emergency meeting to decide whether to release a public statement or quietly move on. But for Tim, there was no crisis plan. He simply got in his car, turned off his phone, and drove away, leaving behind a storm that would only grow fiercer by the next morning.